There we go, we're live now. Okay, so here's today's question. In fact, this was, I think, asked yesterday. Some people think that food is one of the most fundamental economic products and should be mostly produced by each country for its own consumption with only minimal export of products to other countries. To what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement? Give your own opinion and relevant examples, right? So the first thing you do is you understand your question. Let me just zoom in a bit. There we go. That looks better. Right. So what they're asking me here is, do I support the idea that, food should not be exported in large amounts, or do I think that, it's okay for food to be exported, right? That's the core issue here. Let's see. Now, I think I don't really agree with this idea. I mean, I think that, trade should be free. So I'm kind of going to disagree with this. And let's see. First, I'm going to have to think. Have body paragraph 1 as usual. Body paragraph 2. And I need to think of 2 reasons why I disagree. Now, whenever you have an opinion essay, make sure that you're picking the side that you can defend well, even if it's not really something you truly support. Because see, this isn't a test of, your opinions and your feelings about things, okay? Just a sec. All right, so don't worry about being very truthful and expressing yourself. Just pick whatever's easiest, all right? And here we're talking about food. So we've got this idea that food, because it's so important, that each country should make their own food and they shouldn't be exporting it. Not at all, but if they do export, they should only export a very small amount, right? Minimal export. So I don't think that's a good idea. I would probably say culture is very closely tied to food, so I feel like it's just unfair as a customer. Imagine if you weren't able to eat a specific kind of food just because it's not grown in your country. I mean, that's just it's just very strange, isn't it? I mean, we have to have the freedom of choice, don't we? So my first idea can be something like possibly, let's see, I'm going to disagree with this. I would probably say culture is closely tied to food, so I'm just going to write my main idea sentence first because that's going to make it easier for me to write, rest of my supporting ideas. So I feel like culture is tied to food, and if we want people to be, globalized, then you can't really restrict food imports. Or, I mean, in any case, food is, not something, I mean, it's very rare for a country to, have problems if they export food. It's not really, it's a non-issue really. I feel like agricultural exports, they don't really count for much anyway. So I'm not sure what the argument here is, because I feel like this is kind of a silly thing. You don't earn a lot in food trade. Sure, you might if you're growing exotic food or something like that, but normally countries that trade mostly in agriculture tend not to be very economically strong in the first place. It's really the export of capital goods that, bring in the actual money. So I feel like, let's see, food is one of the most fundamental economic products and should be produced by each country for its own consumption. Okay, maybe I can say that food is an essential component of culture and in a diverse I guess if we want to say that, if people learn about other cultures through their cuisine or through their, food items, like avocados, mangoes, etc., that they would be more tolerant people, right? We could have more harmony and peace. So food is an essential component of culture and can foster. There we go. And my next supporting, main idea sentence, my next reason for disagreeing agreeing with a near complete ban on food exports could maybe be about how, I guess I could say they're important, for trade because there's a lot of countries which primarily depend on exports. So that would just crush, their economies. So it wouldn't be fair for them. And then I just need three ways of explaining this idea. There we go. So food is an essential component of culture. It can foster harmony. How exactly? When people are exposed to more, you know, cultural products, culture, they can, as a result of this, they could probably become more tolerant, or they would, associate that culture, or maybe they would kind of and not be, you know this is kind of, you don't need to use a word like this, but this is what I could come up with. And lastly, think positive of culture, not be xenocentric, increased harmony across the world, less, I could say, fewer standoffs, like, some countries have issues between them. This could actually be solved by trade. Increase harmony, more trade, more success, more, um, right, there we go. And then many countries depend on exports of food. My major argument here is that not all countries export capital products. Many depend on agriculture, and some items are only found, oh, that can actually be, yeah, this wouldn't really fit here. But it's not really about harmony, so it doesn't really matter if I say that, for example, coffee is only grown in certain areas, avocados are only found in certain areas, right? So you wouldn't be able to like find that elsewhere, right? What else can we add here? Not all countries export capital products. Many still depend on agriculture. Um, if they stop exporting, they would lose a lot of money. It's not even the countries themselves, actually. Many people, right? Small businesses. Doesn't I look good? And the last point could be that, what else? In terms of depending on agricultural exports, we could say that, when you export something, of course, you get money from that country. But even when a single person or a small business exports something, they earn money and then they pay taxes on that money, right? So it's really important for nation building. Um, or maybe we can say trade, right? Trade of food items to support their economies. And there are lots of countries which are landlocked. They may not be able to get, for example, fish. There's lots of countries where the land just isn't very fertile, and even if they tried, they wouldn't really be able to grow much food, right? So then what are they supposed to do? Starve? So lots of countries. Um, Agricultural output, because the land isn't fertile, whatever. They still need food, they still have to import, right? So I've changed export to trade. Trade means import and export. There we go. Right, and now all I have to do is to start with my introduction. So first you spend some time planning your essay, know exactly what you're going to write so you don't end up, confused in any way. Right? Okay, well, we're gonna start your introduction. Let's see. My my essay is largely about trade in food, so I can just write something, general about that. Nothing that's extremely broad. Of course, it has to be specific about trade in food, right? I can say trade is a major component of globalization. Have been, I would say, popular since centuries. Um, you've got, the Silk Road that was specifically a route for trade. You've got a lot of spices were sent from Asia to, other countries and lands. So it's a very old thing. It's not some new thing that people are doing, right? So trade is a major component of globalization, and imports and exports of food products have been popular since centuries, making it possible for people across the world to savor, I would say, types of food available in far-off lands. And then I need to show my opinion. So what's my opinion? I disagree with curbing exports. Would only lead to, I would say, dissatisfaction and, I mean, not disaster, but countries would suffer economically. So we could say that this trade has to go on, since curbing exports would only lead to dissatisfaction. It would only maybe not harm, but maybe, let's say, cause discomfort. Or maybe I can just kind of cut this short, right? Because it doesn't have to be so big. It's essential that we realize that this trade must go on, since there we go. And this is the main idea sentence. I'm just going to take this here, put it over here, and then I'm going to start. Let's see. Um, this is because exposed to more agricultural products. Okay, when people to a wide range of food products from across the globe, they acquire more knowledge about that culture and become, familiarized with it, right? Which in turn makes them, I'm going to join these two ideas together. It's still two separate ones. I could, of course, separate them, in two different sentences, but I don't feel like doing it. And that's also perfectly okay. That's just another style of writing. It's perfectly valid. You might do something differently, and that's okay. This is because people acquire more knowledge about that culture, or maybe some, because it's the same thing. You become familiarized, you acquire more knowledge. So they which in turn makes them view that culture positively. As a result of this, you know what they say, familiarity. What's that thing called familiarity? Well, there's actually two different sayings about familiarity. One is that familiarity breeds contempt, that's hatred, and the other one is that it kind of inspires like closeness or something. I forgot what exactly what it was. So as a result of this, they are more likely, people are likely to, embrace and be tolerant. So life and not, to be strict. This would in turn, I've already said in turn, let's change it up a bit. I can say consequently, this, effectively increases global harmony and leads to more trade, which is, trade has always been a way to check, like, trade is linked to progress and success, which obviously is good for everyone. Or we can say this effectively increases global harmony and leads to more trade, which leads to greater personal and national success. And finally, cultural trade, I can say it's kind of, let's see, leads to greater understanding amongst those of differing backgrounds. And then I have the second main idea sentence. That's the second paragraph. Not all countries export capital products, right? So I guess to export something, you have to produce it first. So not all countries produce capital goods that can be exported. As a result of which they have no choice, essentially. As a vital, part, trading relationships to be able to bring in money for their economies. Let me give an example. Not all countries produce capital goods, such as in the case of India, as a result of which they have no choice but to rely on agricultural produce as a vital part of their trading relationships to bring in money to run their countries, or just bring in the money. And the last thing, the second thing is that small businesses and farmers also depend on agriculture. So not only do countries rely on individual farmers and small businesses also need to export their produce without a livelihood to support their families and workers. Right? If you're a business, you have to. If you're a business, it's probably a bigger issue, right? Because a business has employees, and the employees depend on that business to earn an income, right? And the last thing, lots of countries don't have agricultural output, so they need to import, right? And supporting the economy doesn't always just mean financially, but you have to support your people. They need food to eat. If your country simply doesn't, have fertile land, what are you supposed to do? Let your people starve? Obviously, that's not an option, right? Just checking the word count. That's 103. That's good. And there are many regions across the world that do not have which makes it difficult to, basically get food. There are many regions across the world that do not have fertile lands, or maybe they have unfavorable weather conditions, right? Like countries around the Arctic. Unfavorable weather conditions, or do not have access to the sea, which makes it difficult for them to generate their own food products, which in turn makes it necessary to import food to be able to feed their citizens. Then, therefore, this is a lopsided paragraph. You can see this one looks a bit bigger than this one, which is not okay. You've got to fix it. In fact, I think this is what I should fix because it looks a bit small, doesn't it? So let's read this one more because I just don't like how it's this, it really annoys me. Okay, so food is an essential component of culture and can foster harmony amongst everyone. This is because when people are exposed to a wide range of agricultural products from across the globe, they become familiarized with it, which in turn makes them view that culture or view the culture that supplies that food in positive terms, or positively. As a result of this, people are more likely to embrace and be taught about the cultures and ways of life, and not grow up to be xenocentric. Obviously, it's a good thing if people are accepting, right? This increases global harmony, leads to more trade, which leads to greater personal and national progress, which is, who hates progress? Progress is never a bad thing, right? Which pretty much is everyone's goal, right? Everybody wants to progress, every country wants to progress. I want to find a way to put it in the sentence, but in a way that doesn't exceed my word count. I don't want to write something too huge either. There we go. Okay. Still a bit big, but I'm gonna work on that later on. It is not just countries which rely on this, but individual farmers and small businesses also need to export their fruits and vegetables to equal livelihood and support their families and workers. There are many regions across the world that do not have fertile lands, have unfavorable weather, or do not have access to the sea, which makes it difficult for them to generate their own food. Which in turn makes it, okay, now that's better, that looks much better. Okay, so therefore, it would be foolish to, there we go, simple and effective. And then the conclusion. And I'm just going to restate my opinion once more. I'm against the idea of, curbing or banning or decreasing trade in any way whatsoever. So it is better than that. The exports and imports of food have an important role to play in today's world. And restricting this trade would have disastrous consequences. Okay, exports and imports play an important role. Many countries depend on trade, and it's an essential component of culture. So I've talked about how important role to play in today's untitled world to support economies and promote, tolerance. I've already said promote tolerance. I've already kind of said that, I guess. Let's say diversity. There we go. Oops. There we go. Okay, and then I'm going to give some kind of recommendation or perhaps a warning or some kind of advice maybe. So if our goal is to, consistently aim towards growth and development, our goal is to ensure growth and development across the globe, we must, we can avoid, any attempts to halt trade. Right? We have to oppose any movements which are anti-trade, anti-exports, imports, whatever that is. I don't know how long it's been. I think I started probably half an hour ago, and you can see that it's already done. It was a pretty simple question, though, I guess. But just remember, anytime they're asking you, a question where you're given a choice, to what extent do you agree or disagree? Keep in mind that they're asking you to make a choice. I see a lot of people who try and give these balanced views and they partially agree, they partially disagree, but that doesn't make any sense because the question is, do you agree or disagree? Pick one. I'm not saying you can't offer a balanced view. You could if your skills, general language skills were really good, where you could express yourself clearly. But if that was the case, you probably wouldn't be watching this video. Just gonna be honest with you. And that's the kind of person that I'm talking about that would get like an 8.5 or something in grammar and word choice. They don't need help anyway, right? So keep it simple. Getting a 7 is not difficult, but a lot of people complicate it because obviously for a lot of teachers and so on, it makes sense for them to complicate it because then they can sell you a package that fixes that problem. But it's not complex. That's the biggest problem, in fact, is that a lot of people think it has to be complex, but it doesn't. Make sure your writing is extremely simple and easy to understand for your reader, because you're not writing for yourself, you're writing for someone else. Okay, let's see the total word count. And that's what, 396. Okay, it's a little bit on the bigger side, but that's still okay. This looks a bit lopsided, so I'm still kind of annoyed with this. I think I'll just fix this. Okay, not all countries produce capital goods. Let's say export worthy. Capital goods, when you export capital goods, let's say aircraft, weapons, stuff like that, obviously you can sell that for far more money than you can sell like fruits and vegetables or something, right? They have no choice but to rely on agricultural produce as a vital part of their trading relationships to basically run their countries. I don't really need to bring in the money. It is not just countries which rely on this, but yeah, this is fine now. It looks pretty even, looks pretty good so far. And I think that's pretty much it. This was a really simple question. Sorry about that. And I hope you learned something from this. As usual, you can actually kind of just let me know, leave a comment or something, and make sure you subscribe because I do this every week. The time can change slightly, but it's normally at this time. And every week I take a brand new question that has been asked in the same week in an exam across the world. So if you watch enough of these videos, you'll probably have a good, amount of ideas that you can essentially copy. Of course, you're not going to copy the same thing. We're not talking about plagiarizing. We're just taking the ideas that, countries, they have to export goods and stuff like that, right? Okay, well, that's pretty much it for today. I think this one went by pretty quickly, probably because I guess I didn't really say a whole lot more as I normally do. But yeah, this question was pretty easy, I guess. Next time I'll take a much tougher question, promise. Alright then, well, make sure to subscribe and let me know in the comment section if there's a question that's bothering you and if you would like me to write an essay on it. I'd love to do that. Alright? Great. Alright then.